Okay, welcome everybody to the 11th Ward Town Hall. It's great to see so many people out. Again, my sincerest apologies. I'm mortified that that happened. We were here early, we tested everything out, and then well, here we are. So I'm going to get the show on the road. I'm cognizant of the fact that we've got a lot to cover, but appreciate everybody being here. I'm just going to do a quick few introductions. I wanted to introduce my staff here. This is Juanita Barajas. Some of you know Sharon Arrigo, who's been with our team. She does infrastructure. Juanita does economic development. We've got Commander Joe Mark from the 9th District, and then Carl Schwarzer, sorry, Schwarzer, from CDOT, who's going to be here to cover some infrastructure things as well.
Meredith's here from water.
And Meredith is here from the Water Reclamation District. If there are any questions that come up that she can answer, thank you for being here. We're gonna go ahead and just dive right in. I know we haven't had one of these meetings in a while, so there's gonna be a lot to cover. We'll make sure we're here to answer questions. If there's anything that I don't cover that you do want to talk about, we'll make sure that we do that. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Jack in the back to advance to the next slide, if you don't mind. Let me get everybody else in here with us as well. So we're going to start with infrastructure in the 11th Ward. And I'm going to just start by way of background. Every time one of you calls the ward with a complaint about a pothole or an issue at your place, we are logging those requests. If there's a sidewalk that you have an issue with, if it's raised, if it's trees, all of that stuff gets reported. And what that does goes over to Sharon. Sharon then manages the whole sort of database of requests that we have coming in. Every year, the city of Chicago provides every ward $1.5 million in infrastructure dollars, regardless of the size of your ward. You know, Brian Hopkins' ward is about that big compared to the 11th Ward, which is like this big. It's not the most fair system in the world, but that's the world we're living in. That amount has not changed since I've been in office. And every year the prices of materials goes up. So the menu that we choose from, I'll just give you an example. To do a concrete alley, because that's one of the #1 things that we get requests for. Alleys are flooding, alleys need repaving. Repaving an alley is not very expensive, but putting in a concrete alley with drainage, when I started was about $250,000. I've been in office now for 4 years. It is now about $400,000 to do that. The cost of materials, the cost of labor, everything has just gone up. Which just means we have less buying power, unfortunately. So I don't want Sharon to have to say that. She has to say it too often. We know there's a lot of need in the ward, and wherever we have TIF funds available, we are trying to leverage TIF funds and not spend menu money on big things like alleys, if we can help it. So with that, I want to say one other thing. If you give us a complaint or a concern about traffic safety in an area, generally our response is to first and foremost request a traffic study for that area, which is that's the area that Carl works in primarily. So I'm going to hand it over to Sharon, who's going to talk about.
We're
going to start with Carl. Okay, sure.
The traffic study,
yes.
And then we'll go into what projects we're working on that are big in the ward right now.
All right, here you go.
Sure. All right, thank you. I appreciate that Alderman Lee invited me here tonight to be able to speak with you and answer any questions that do come up. And I think Sharon will get into some specific projects that are on the horizon. But I did just want to start with, I'm Carl Schwarzer. I'm Assistant Chief Traffic Engineer for the City of Chicago. And I work on a traffic design team that does receive traffic study requests from all aldermen. So echoing what Sharon and Alderman Lee has touched on here, ultimately, if you have a concern in your community about speeding on a corridor, difficulty crossing as pedestrian, bike safety, any of those items should be taken to the aldermanic staff who do receive those and then ultimately do make a traffic study request to CDOT. And when we receive those requests, we do investigate that location. We look at what are the existing conditions? What is the specific concern at this location? And we typically do produce a list of recommendations of treatments that could be done at that location. That can range from simple sign and pavement marking changes that can be implemented pretty easily and just out of CDOT general operating funds. And it can range up to more aggressive treatments that's actual concrete work that does have a funding requirement one of the options being the menu that Alderman Lee has touched on there. There are other funding sources that we can work through. It's just typically those other funding sources will have additional stipulations on them, paperwork, lead time. So in many cases, the menu funding is the simplest and the quickest option, but obviously, as we touched on, that only goes so far, and we do work with the aldermanic staff on other possible options for some of these bigger projects that are out there. So again, any concerns you have, I would recommend you take it to the aldermanic staff who does work with us very closely at CDOT. So I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we don't have a wireless, but we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna hand it back to Sharon. The only other thing I wanted to sort of throw in there is that Carl mentioned capital dollars. The city does have a capital improvement program of which we do benefit from. And some of these projects, actually, most of the major projects that are going on in the ward currently are funded through the capital improvement program. So here you go. Over to you, Sharon.
Welcome, everybody. Sharon Regal, 11th Ward.
Might have to move over this way.
Jack, can you please forward to the next slide? I'm going to review right now some of the main projects that we have going on within the 11th Ward. The first one that we're going to discuss is the sewer water main replacement. This is taking place from 35th Street to 39th Street on Parnell Avenue, as many of you have gone through the neighborhood may have seen. Currently, they are in the process of sewer piping. That's estimated to be completed by the end of June. They are also part of the portion of the job that has been completed right now is at 39th to 38th Street. And that is concrete restoration. And that's the complete project is estimated to be completed by the end of July, except for the intersection of 35th. So due to the sock season taking place right now, once they complete all of Parnell, they'll restart again at the intersection of 35th and Parnell to complete that intersection work. And so there will be some detours around that once the sock season is over. We also, as you have seen going on, have another sewer water main replacement project. This one was located from 31st to 33rd on South Canal Street. It's also taking part on 33rd Street from Canal to Emerald Avenue. It's currently, the project is completed, the sewers are all in and the lead service lines have been replaced. This is estimated to end in early July. Right now, they have completed about 95% of the concrete restoration on Canal Street from 31st to 35th. Next slide, please. There's another large water management project taking place on Pershing Road. You'll notice that this runs from Pershing Road from Racine to Wentworth Avenue. This is a sewer resurfacing and a water line replacement project. The project is estimated for completion late summer, early fall, always weather permitting with these types of projects. The contractor is scheduled to begin removing portions of the existing street closures beginning next week as work progresses towards the completion. However, as many of you have seen, Pershing Road in Halsted does have a blockade in the center of the street there, and that is going to remain in effect and closer to the end of the project. Next slide. We're at the final stages of our current street resurfacing project on Wentworth Avenue from Cermak to 24th Place. So they have just completed the asphalting and the striping, and there's some signage that needs to be completed, and that project will be done approximately mid-June.
Can I also just add real quick here? Oh no, did we lose the mic? Oh, sorry.
Might have pulled out.
Oh, that's better. Okay, in Chinatown, just so because we didn't cover it here, we did a bunch of improvements to Wentworth. You've been through, you might be frustrated just because it's slow to get through there, but there are all new ADA compliant ramps up and down both sides of Wentworth Avenue. That includes a handful of curb bump outs, which makes it a little bit easier for people with disabilities to get and seniors to get back and forth across the street. There's also a whole host of new, crosswalk signs, so pedestrian crossing signs. And a new stop sign has been added on Wentworth at 23rd Place. That was at the request of Haynes Elementary School, because a lot of their kids cross the street at that intersection, and there wasn't a stop for the east-west, or sorry, for the north-south there.
Thank you. Next slide. We're gonna discuss a little bit about infrastructure lighting. Right now, we had some projects that recently have been done and more that are about to start. Completed in 2025. There was 2 blocks of new lighting with the piggyback lighting. This was on 33rd Street to 35th, South Parnell. We also did on Wentworth Avenue in Chinatown, from West Cermak Road to 24th Place. New lighting in that area as well. And we're projected to start construction soon on Sagamon Street from West 35th to 37th. Next slide. So what's coming up in the near future? We have a raised crosswalk that's going to be installed at 29th Street between McWayne Park and Pomazano Park. Construction is estimated to begin fall of 2026. There's also a curb and gutter and street resurfacing on Princeton between Cermak and 24th Place, and that's projected to begin July 1st. Some traffic safety areas that we are working on. These aren't going to take place until 2027, but we're going to have at Halsted Street to 43rd traffic signal modernization project. And then on Halsted Street, as many of you know, there was an accident this morning. Halsted and 31st Street, they'll be installing left turn arrows, and that construction will begin in 2027 as well.
And for those of you that might be thinking, oh, weren't we supposed to get an arrow a long time ago? You are remembering correctly. That was actually approved before I started. I don't have a great answer for why it hasn't been installed yet, but we did confirm that they gave us a date finally. So we're gonna stay on CDOT about getting that installed. All right.
So next, we're gonna talk about public safety, and we'll have Commander Mark and Alderwoman Lee discuss this.
We'll take questions at the end unless there's something burning that someone wants to ask, like right this minute. But I wanna keep things moving along here since we got such a late start. As I mentioned, we've got Commander Mark here. We've got other folks from the 9th District that are here. Our CAPS team is in the back. I see Sergeant Bautista and Officer Zito back there. And Jim, Officer McAndrew. Is Carlos back there too?
Yes.
I can't see. So please, I mean, these are all familiar faces. They're here as well. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna hand this over to Commander Mark, and then he's gonna go over some stats, and then we'll go over some issues that we're having in the ward.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Good evening, everyone. I'm Commander Joe Mark with the 9th District. Of the 9 wards that I work with, the entire 11th ward falls within the 9th district boundaries. The 9th District goes from the north end from the Chicago River all the way to 55th Street, the Dan Ryan Expressway, all the way to Kedzie. So it covers about 14 square miles. So the 11th ward, the entire 11th ward falls within the boundaries of the 9th District. So Alderwoman and I and myself, we work closely with public safety issues. So we can go over some issues. Alderwoman, you want to talk
Yeah.
about it, or?
No, we wanna go over the
Okay.
stats first?
Yeah, again, my CAPS team is here in the back, so if you have questions at the end of it, please feel free to reach out to them, any concerns with public safety. So
Jack, can we have the next slide?
next
please?
slide, please. All right, so from 2022 to 2025, we've seen a pretty steady decrease in violent crimes, 355. This is all 11th ward specific. It's not the entire district. Obviously, we wanted to just focus on the 11th ward issue. So 355 in 2022 to 261 in 2025. Vehicular hijackings went down considerably. See, in 2022, it's 47. 2025, we only had 7 within the ward. I skipped robberies, I'm sorry. Robberies, 175 in 2022, steadily declined, 93 in 2025. Unfortunately, we're seeing an uptick in property crimes, burglary to autos, and thefts. We can discuss that, I can discuss it a little bit. Been seeing a lot of, burglary to autos. Last year, we got slammed with a bunch of catalytic converter thefts, burglary to autos, that type of stuff. Smash and grabs. We got the same subjects, offenders out there going through the neighborhoods, uh, pick, picking on car, door locks, picking on the car door handles and, breaking in, smash and grab whatever they can get. We have made significant, arrests. Couple of patterns were cleared with, a couple of significant arrests last year. So we have made some strides in that area. Shootings, the violent crimes, 25 in 2022 went down to 12 in 2025. Shot spotters, calls in 2022, obviously we had shot spotter back then, was 296. Obviously it's gone now, but we rely heavily right now on shots fired, called for service, 185 in 2022. And it's come down quite a little bit, 121 in 2025. That we have to address that. If you hear people get complacent now when they, hear gunfire, they expect or they assume that their neighbor's gonna call. Just call 911. Give us because we're trying to locate, with ShotSpotter in the past, we were able to locate, where it actually occurred, pinpoint within like 15 feet of the actual shots. Right now, we rely on shots fired calls, which, when citizens call in, residents call in, it's a general location because now they're kind of estimating how far the shot or which direction, how far the shots came from. So it's a little difficult for us to track, incidents especially without a victim. If you're trying to locate shell casings, we have a NIBIN, forensics where we can track, we can do forensics ballistics tests on shell casings, kind of correlate where these, guns, are used within the city. Sometimes we get, shell casings within the district. They correlate with, shell casings that are fired from other districts on the north side, like 25th district. So it helps us to recover some of these casings to put cases together. So yeah, if you hear shots fired, just call it in 911. Don't assume that your neighbors are gonna call. So the bottom part of this, we're doing year to date, the first 5 months of 2025.
Back, next slide, please.
Oh, it's on the bottom, yes.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, excuse me, didn't you forget homicides and crimes against seniors?
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped it. Homicides, yeah, we were even 2022, we saw an uptick in 2024, but now we're back down in 2024, homicides within the ward. Crimes against seniors, pretty steady as well. 2022 we had 6, 2025 we ended up with 11. So yeah, it's pretty steady across the board. Those type of crimes are again, it's homicides are mostly within the ward. It's we see mostly disputes. It's not gang related most of the time within this ward specifically. We have had a couple, but generally it's a neighborly dispute or like an argument between two subjects. Domestic disputes, and even robberies. So,
Thank you, I knew that.
yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing that out. So, can we move on? Next slide, please?
Sorry, yeah, it's here.
Oh, there it is.
Jack, go back one. You wanna go to the,
No,
Yeah, that's
this is
right.
it. This is it.
I know, it's
Oh,
he's navigating that from a,
Okay.
there's a tall wizard behind the screen.
All right, very good. So this slide pertains to year-to-date 2025 to 2026, just a comparison. Violent crimes, 97 last year-to-date, and 87. So we've seen a little bit of decrease year-to-date. Robberies are down year-to-date, 37 last year, the same time, and 25 this year. Hijackings uptick. We had 1 last year about this time and then 2 this year. So not too bad considering back in 2022, we seen a dramatic, it was 47 back in 2022. So, that was throughout the course of the year, but still, for the first 5 months, having 2 in the ward is actually a pretty good sign. Crimes against seniors, We had 4 in 2025 and only 1 so far in 2026. Burglaries, again, burglary to autos and thefts, we've seen a big increase. This year, property crimes, you get the package thieves, the porch pirates we call them, they just prime of opportunity, they see a package there, so it's unfortunate that people are doing this. Try to get to your packages or have a secure location, for your packages. People are just primary opportunities. We've seen an increase of airbag thefts, which falls under these categories. Last year was catalytic converters. They were making a lot of money, these crews, they were grabbing the catalytic converters, but this year it's airbags, specifically towards Hondas and Acuras. So we recommend if you own a Honda or your neighbor own, please just spread the word that they're going through the neighborhood. It takes like 30 seconds, 45 seconds. They break the window, they just pry the airbags off and they're gone. So it's that quick. So they hit multiple cars within like several block radius. So that's why our numbers are increasing. We've tried to, where we have been, because they've been occurring between the midnight hours, mostly between 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. We've had increased presence out there, not only in the 11th ward, but it's throughout this airbag
Citywide
stuff.
issue.
It's a citywide issue. We've seen it all over the place. So we've been trying to get a handle on it, increase control. My tag teams are out there. Our tag teams are out there patrolling. We've actually been successful in chasing these guys out of, first of all, we've been successful in making arrests. We had 1 significant arrest. They had 10 airbag thefts in Chinatown last month, a month and a half ago. And our SDSC room was quick to get a plate. Actually, it was the Chinatown group, I should say, were quick to get a plate for us. We put it into our license plate reader system and tracked that vehicle to the 10th district, where the 10th district officer made an arrest. So with the airbag still in the car. So that was a good case. Unfortunately, 10 victims, but we got that crew out of it. But there's more than 1 crew out there. There's several crews. We just chased actually almost every morning, about 4 or 5 in the morning. We're chasing the car out of our district. Unfortunately, with our pursuit policies, we're restricted on what we can and cannot chase for. That's just how it is. Property crimes, they're classified as property crimes. It's not worth risking public safety, citizens getting hurt, so that type of stuff. So we're really restricted on that type of engagement. But we have been successful. We had a helicopter help us a couple times. You have to request that resource. And we have been successful when the helicopter helps us track the vehicles, because they can track it from the air and just track the vehicle until it actually stops, or we can follow it until it stops, and we can grab them that way. So we've been successful that way as well. It goes again with the ATM burglaries. A lot of our establishments or business establishments in the ward, in the district, have been hit recently with these commercial burglaries.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you wanna?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you can go next slide.
I'm sorry. Going too fast.
No, it's not. I just wanted to be able to get to the next one here because we're gonna address all of these
Okay,
issues.
do you wanna?
No, well, you can keep going. I didn't,
Okay.
did not mean to interrupt you.
I'm jumping all over the place. I went from burglary, smash and grabs. Well, we have commercial burglaries. That's not on here, but just want to touch on it real quick. Citywide, the city has been experiencing a lot of these ATM. I mean, I know Turtles and Cork and Cary got hit.
Car wash,
Car wash on 31st Street got hit. 31st and Union got hit.
Mexican restaurant.
Wally's on Wallace got hit. Yeah. So it's a citywide issue. The bad guys are coming, smashing their stolen car, usually smashing a stolen car into the establishment and trying to just get their ATM out of the place. And if it's not ATM, it's a cash register. So we're working on that. We've actually been, the 9th district actually has been successful this past month. We made 2 significant arrests, one on 34th and Ashland, 34th, 35th and Ashland, where again, we increased patrol. Our tech teams were out there. The helicopter was up that morning, and our midnight officers spotted a few at the door, prying open a door at one of the commercial businesses there. Chase was on. The bad guys crashed over at 35th and National. We got 4 in custody for that one. That incident cleared a citywide pattern, up to 36 cases. So citywide, not only in the 9th district, but obviously all over the city. So that was a significant arrest. The helicopter did help us in that one because they had used their thermal imaging because a couple of guys were hiding in bushes. I mean, literally 15 feet from my officers, and they were pretty well hidden, but the thermal imaging directed our officers to the bad guys over there. So that was good caper. Then the following morning, we also had the helicopter was not up, was kind of weather wasn't that great, but again, it's not in your ward, it's 9/11, but we had a significant arrest as well. That one again at ATM. So it's out there, the ATM burglaries, the smash and grabs within the businesses, the cash register, it's happening. So just be mindful of that. You hear anything, if you're near a business, you hear breaking windows, just call. We recommend alarms. A lot of places don't have alarms. It's unfortunate. That'll alert us a little quicker. We can't be everywhere, unfortunately, but we try to be out there, try to be visible. But alarms help us get to the area quicker, so we can try to track these vehicles. Let's go down the list here. Yeah, you.
Yeah, I'll give you a break for a second.
Thank you.
Can someone get the commander another cup of water? He just ran through a lot of stuff, so I wanna. We're not trying to like plow through this. All of these things are really important, so I just wanted to chime in with a couple of things. It's really important that everybody, if you see something, say something, dial 911. If you're not sure if they were gunshots out your window and you think they were fireworks, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and call it in. I hear very often people say, I don't want to bother the police with that. You're actually not calling directly to the police. You have a call taker. You can come on up. It's an operator at OEMC that picks up the call, and then they're the ones that dispatch the resources at the end of the day. But what it does for us is it creates a data point. We need as much data as we can, because if we know that, at 6 different addresses in the same vicinity, we are then acting as these calls for shots fired as the new shot spotter, if you will, or gun detection, because the police are flying blind with that. I'm not gonna get into that tonight. There was supposed to be a meeting today and it didn't happen. It's very frustrating, but there's plenty of my colleagues and I who are trying to stay on the city and the police department about where we are in gunshot detection. But we need everybody's help. This is my main message. If you are a victim of one of these crimes, whether it is a porch pirate or if someone broke into your car, please, please, please file a police report. The police reports help, again, to create data points, because then that information is used by the police district to see patterns, to indicate where we should be sending more patrols. If these things are happening at certain times of the day, this is how they have this information about how to reallocate resources. I will always sound like a broken record with that, and I don't care. Please call 911. Don't be afraid to call them and file reports. This list here is really primarily the things that we get a lot of calls about in the ward. Now, I know people love to call our office and say, what happened at such and such address last night? Or why were there gunshots over here? We don't live in every corner of the ward, so we don't necessarily know. I say this a lot too, we rely on the public to let us know what's happening so that we can also try to get resources in. And when you call with that information, the first thing we do is call over to the 9th district, and the first thing that they do is check for calls for service. And if there were no calls for service, then the police were blind on it too. So again, another message here just to reinforce to dial 911. And I'll go through these one at a time. You've probably seen, if you've been on social media, at all, that there's been a lot of activity related to massage parlors and prostitution out of actual physical homes, like apartment buildings, as well as single family homes. We take every single one of those seriously. Again, anytime you call with anything, we are passing information on to the police. We're not sitting on that. But and Commander Mark, you can back me up on this. I know how frustrating it is if you live on a block where one of these places is at, and you continually see people, men lining up on the street, women coming out scantily clothed, and nothing is being done about it. I want to assure you that the information's been passed along, and it's not easy to just shut one of these places down. And what the law enforcement's trying to do ultimately is to try to shut down the ring. I think what we know is that these people are very organized, and they have the resources to kind of move around. So it becomes a game of whack-a-mole. And Sharon does public safety for us. She is on the phone several times a week with our vice, team. And they are working with us very closely, to try to shut these places down. I saw a comment in the chat. I'll acknowledge it in the room because you guys can't see it. It says sex work is work. I don't disagree with you on that unless you are being trafficked, which by and large is what's happening in these cases. So I'm not here to debate whether or not, the quote unquote oldest trade in the world is something that's valid or not. What it is illegal in the city of Chicago. So if you are living next to a place where this is happening, please let us know. If you haven't already called us, please tell us, because we're compiling all of this information. We're working with the police. Commander Mark, I don't know if you want to comment on this or not, and like, what can the public do to help in these cases?
Sure, as Alderwoman said, every call that you call the ward, or even call 911 or call the district itself, we take seriously. We act on it. We conduct investigations. We forward it to our vice unit. They do an investigation as well. It's just, these investigations take time, unfortunately. We have to prove that the criminal activity, even though kind of know what's going on, we have to prove it. Obviously, it's as the Alderwoman said, this is an illegal activity, but to prove it, we have to usually do some undercover stuff, surveillance. So these things take time. And as we found out, as we know, these are organized rings. It's not just a one-off. A lot of these places are organized. Whack-a-mole. We shut one down, they pop up in another place. So what I can say is our department, our vice unit is working closely with our federal partners in looking at some of these places. And we've actually made a couple of busts, not busts, search warrants, I should say. So we're making headway, but again, these things take time. So just be patient. We understand your frustration. But it is something that we are actively, and again, we take every complaint seriously. So you call in, we act on it, and we just don't put it aside. So thank you.
All right, we talked about airbag thefts and catalytic converters and package thefts. Again, please make sure that if you are a victim of this, that you're reporting it. If you have cameras and you have evidence, the police would appreciate having that as well. Commander Mark mentioned that there was an arrest made based on a license plate that was provided by the group in Chinatown. So the Chinatown Neighborhood Watch is an all-volunteer group, and over time they've developed relationships with businesses and property owners in Chinatown. There's a network of close to 300 cameras where we're able to assist the police actually with a lot of information. If you were following a few years ago, there was a man who was murdered on 23rd Place in front of Haynes Elementary School. An arrest was made within about 90 minutes of that happening because of the work and the resources of the Chinatown Neighborhood Watch and being able to get that to CPD. And that case has been closed. The offender's been sentenced. We don't always get to hear the sort of closing of the loop of those stories. I think all too often, what I hear from a lot of constituents is frustration around, nothing's gonna happen if we call the police. And it's really easy to be resigned to that position. I want to assure you that, all of the fine men and women of the law enforcement and all of the other support organizations are doing everything that they can, and we can definitely use the help from the public. So if you have a video camera on your property and you can still register your camera with the 9th District so that they can know that you have a camera, and if something happens in the area, they can come and reach out to you as they're canvassing for evidence. Do you want to add to that?
It's actually not registered with the 9th District.
Sorry.
It's registered through OEMC. We do have a program. A CAPS officer back there. If you do have private cameras, outward facing cameras, and you want to allow OEMC to have access to it, we do have a program where you fill out a form and it gets processed through the department and OEMC. But there's some requirements to bandwidth speed and Wi-Fi speed, which I don't really know about, but that definitely has a program, a voluntary program, if you're interested or the neighborhood's interested in allowing OEMC to have access to their outward cameras. Again, as Alderman said, the cameras in Chinatown are very, very helpful. Some of them are even license plate readers in of them themselves. I know they petitioned for grant money, and that's how they set up their own network, but they work closely with my district, specifically with our SDSC. And I should have said it earlier, our SDSC room is our strategic decision support center. It's our nerve center, kind of like a miniature fusion center in the 9th district. Every district has an SDSC. If you want to take a tour one day, we have cameras. It's a room where officers sit and they monitor cameras throughout the city. It's real time license plate readers. So that's how we're able to track these vehicles. It's a very, very good resource that we have. And ShotSpotter used to work out of there as well. It's no longer active, obviously, but maybe if there's in the future, we can get it again. That it all comes out of that nerve center. So SDSC is very helpful.
Okay, Jack, can we go to the next slide? I'm just watching the time here. So we want to talk about, just to end or to wrap up the conversation around here, just a call to get involved. As we mentioned earlier, excuse me, we've got the 9th District CAPS team in the back of the room. We've got, what is your title, Maggie?
District Advisory.
District Advisory
Chair.
Chair. There are beat meetings that happen all across the ward and the district. There's a QR code on the screen if you want the full beat meeting schedule. Beat meetings have been restored to every month now, though some of them are hybrid. For a time, it was every other month. So we're glad to have those every month. But if you want to know what's happening, if you want to contribute to the conversation, I encourage everybody to turn up to the CAPS meetings. Again, if you see something, say something. There's the tip line information. And here's a plug for something that I'd love to see happen here in the 11th ward, is to start block clubs. Nothing fights crime better or makes streets safer than just having people out and about and looking out for each other. That also provides opportunities for young people to be involved and know that there's people that care about them in and around the neighborhood. So if anybody's interested in starting a block club on your block, please come talk to us. I'd love to help get that going. I'm letting people in the room. Apologize here. Jack, why don't we go to the next slide? We're just gonna keep things going here. Okay, so quick updates on Chicago Park District stuff. We're gonna do that. We don't have anybody from the Park District here. At Taylor Lauritsen Park, we leveraged some menu money to update the security system over there. So there's 9 security cameras that have been installed newly at Taylor Lauritsen Park. That was a great partnership with the Chicago Park District. They funded part of it, but we wanted to make sure that we had all angles of the park covered over there. There is a pocket park across the street from Jackalope Coffee. And I think that Alderman Thompson purchased that, arranged for the city and the Park District to purchase that property while he was still in office. I'm happy to report that we've been working with Bridgeport environmentalists and the Chicago Park District to do some preliminary plans. Our next step will be to bring this design to the community so that we can share it with everybody and get some additional input. We're looking to move on getting that park going, starting before the end of this year. Bosley Park just had some construction completed, and we've got a new park supervisor. I'm so sorry, I did not mean to do that. I'm gonna stop touching the screen. Christina Moy, who's actually from the 11th ward. She is a Bridgeport resident, and her husband was the park supervisor for a really long time at McWayne Park, Cal Moy. So some of you might know her. We're really thrilled to have her as a park supervisor over at Bosley. She's done a lot with special education and the Special Olympics programs. Arbor Park is getting a new splash pad with the construction plan for spring of 2027. And we are looking at revisiting a conversation about a dog-friendly area. We haven't forgotten about that, but we lack the space to do it. But we've got some new energy with some folks that are interested with the Park Advisory Council there. And now when I want it to move, it's not moving. Jack, let's go to the next slide. We're on to economic development. I'm gonna keep talking here. So Jack, go to the next slide for us. So economic development, something that's been really a big priority for me here in the 11th ward. When I first came into office, I had a lot of people ask me about what my vision was for the ward, and I was like, I just got here, I'm not sure. I've had a lot of time to think about it and work on it, and we're sitting in one of the what I really feel is one of the big catalysts to growth in the 11th ward along the Halsted Street corridor, and that is the Ramova Theater. So we are constantly working with the city as well as the local chamber of commerce to bring resources to the community. I'm really happy to report that we've got some recent grant programs and awards here to the 11th ward, both in Bridgeport as well as in McKinley Park. I'm going to talk about the Moving Archer Forward study, some work and a new project of the Greater Bridgeport South Loop Chamber of Commerce and Public Art. Jack, next slide, please. So the real big news here is the Commercial Corridor Storefront Activation Program. That is a program of the Department of Planning and Development. Citywide, that's $30 million over 12 corridors over 3 years. 2 of those corridors are touched the 11th ward. One wholly in the 11th ward is the Bridgeport one, which is Halsted Street from 32nd to 34th place, Morgan Street from 31st to 35th, and then in McKinley Park, 35th Street from Levitt to Ashland, Archer Avenue from the 35th and Archer Orange line stop to Damon. So what does this mean? The grant program is meant to help improve business corridors through targeted improvements to underutilized and vacant commercial spaces. The grant pays for construction costs like facade repairs or interior remodeling. There's an application process to all of this. I'm really thrilled that I saw some folks from CBCAC in the room. There's Sarah Tang, Grace Chan McKibben is here. We've got McKinley Park Development Council, who's the grant applicant there. Kate Eakin and her team, Greater Bridgeport South Loop Chamber have partnered with CBCAC on the Halsted Street activation. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold and I keep getting stuffy nose in the middle of talking. The next date to apply, I believe, for Halsted at least, is mid to late August. Sarah, is that correct?
August 20th.
August 20th. And then Kate, is that the same date? So August 20th. If you are looking, if you have properties, landlords of commercial spaces, businesses looking to open, or existing businesses may be eligible to apply, I encourage you to stop. If you are here in the room today, stop and talk to them before you leave. If you're interested in getting more information, reach out to the ward. We will put you in touch with them. That is over $4 million between the 2 locations. And that is not a small thing. These are grants. These are not loans. You don't have to repay them. It is free money from the city, but it's your money if you live in this quarter and you've been paying for it. I shouldn't say that. That is from the Economic Development Grant, which is still taxpayer dollars. Next slide is going to be about Small Business Improvement Fund. But this Commercial Corridor Activation Program really is a big deal. We haven't necessarily seen this kind of funding from the city into the 11th ward in the time that I've been here. So I'm really proud that we're doing this, and it's again going to happen over a period of time here. Jack, next slide. So we are sitting currently in the 35th and Halsted TIF. The 11th ward has a handful of TIFs. The 35th and Halsted is probably the one that most people are familiar with. This is all along Halsted down to around Morgan as well. They're annually, DPD opens what's called Small Business Improvement Fund. It is funded out of TIF funds from individual TIFs. And we have $2.9 million available, which is a really large amount of money. Generally, those are about $1 million. I think we had low turnout in previous years, so the money's rolled over, but $3 million was approved to make available for small business improvements. Again, these are not loans, these are grants. These are grants for up to $150,000 for commercial properties, and then for industrial up to $250,000. These are reimbursable. The applications just closed in at the end of May. The great thing about this grant program is that it's either first come, first served. If we don't get enough requests to meet the 2.9, if we have requests that exceed 2.9, it becomes basically a lottery. So these are things that we have been making sure that we have encouraging businesses to apply for if you fall within the corridor. You do have to be within the TIF district to qualify though. Mooching, oh my God. I'm so sorry. Moving Archer forward, is a study that started at the, in spring of 2025. DPD has been looking at, development along the Archer Avenue corridor between Halsted and Cicero. It encompasses 4 wards. You may have gone to one of their community meetings. This is a grant that was funded by the RTA, to really look at how, because it is on Archer Avenue and the Orange Line. We have a lot of really great transit in the area, and it's about how to maximize, and leverage the resources that we have within that district. Looking at development opportunities to do things like increase commercial opportunities around transit stations, as an example. We've got some flyers in the back if anybody's interested. That study should be published sometime by the end of this month, early July. And the final community meeting for that is actually going to be in the Bridgeport community. We're working on a location for that. Just keep your eyes out. We'll share that with you as well. I share that to say that there's lots of activity going on to study our areas and really what's happening here. Has nothing to do with bike lanes. I'll just say that up front. I don't, just to be clear, that is not a conversation about bike lanes. It is about, transportation though, and transit oriented design. So it's not, it may be included in the conversation, but it's not, certainly not the basis of that. Can we go to the next slide? Does that say Greater Bridgeport and South Loop Chamber?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
So the Greater Bridgeport and South Loop Chamber has really been stepping up these last few years. They've got new leadership and they've been doing a lot in the community now. And their newest effort is called Made in Bridgeport. It's going to be an event that's going to be held in the fall, and it is to highlight and feature all of the cool and like unique things that are made in Bridgeport. It's not necessarily strictly like a food festival, but it is going to be a festival here at Remova that's going to be held inside and out to feature all of the great things, great and unique things that are made right here in the 11th Ward and in Bridgeport. So if you are a maker, if you're a business owner, if you make things that somebody doesn't necessarily know about, or if you're not a member of the chamber, please reach out to them and let them know. And if you want to, especially if you want to be a vendor at this event. Jack, next slide, please. Public art is something that I feel strongly is also, in addition to just making our neighborhood a more welcoming place to be, absolutely contributes to the economic viability of our community. We were thrilled that in the last year, there was a mural that was funded through Amazon and administered by the Greater Bridgeport South Loop Chamber of Commerce and done by a local artist called Bridgeport is for Everyone. So if you've driven through down Halsted Street towards Archer, you will have seen both sides of that viaduct get transformed in the last year. So we're really proud of that. There's just a couple of pictures here of all the community members that helped to come out and contribute to painting the mural. Up next, we have People Matter doing a public art project in Chinatown that's going to connect basically Chinatown through Pilsen, and it's going to be a sidewalk mural. So it's not necessarily going to be on a wall. Where they have walls and bridges, they'll use those, but primarily it's going to be along the sidewalk, which is something a little bit different that we haven't necessarily seen. We did through our participatory budgeting project, and we haven't, and I'll just say it now, we're going to bring it back. Just had some staffing issues, but we did fund that out of menu funds to the tune of $25,000 for People Matter. Next slide, and then I'm going to welcome a guest. My colleague Alderman Bennett Lawson from the 44th Ward has joined us to have this discussion about additional dwelling units. Yeah, he can come sit over here. Yeah, we can give him a hand. He made it happen. I'll pass the mic to you, Bennett. Welcome.
Okay,
Welcome
thank
to
you.
11. And he has Wrigley Field, but he is a Sox fan. Yeah, well, I'm a lifelong Sox fan. I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague, but I wanna tee up what a big accomplishment this was. I knew that from the beginning of our term together, because we talked about it early on, Bennett, that, getting additional dwelling units expanded beyond a pilot was one of your main priorities. So really kudos to you for all the work to get that done. Bennett's gonna go over that, and then I will take over and talk about ADUs in the 11th ward. So I just wanna familiarize everybody with what the ordinance, what the pilot was, what the ordinance is now, what's different, what's perfectly legal and allowable today under the current ordinance, and then, what the 11th ward is going to be doing, about ADUs. I'm not gonna bury the lead. We're gonna come up with a process, but I want this to be a discussion about how to create a fair process, in order to approve blocks for ADUs. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague, and you might have to get a little cozy with me here, because the cord doesn't go all the way. Thanks.
Can you hear me? I can also be loud. Microphone is better? All right, great. Like Nicole said, I'm Bennett Lawson. I'm the alderman of the 44th ward. You're 3500 South Halsted. I'm 3500 North Halsted. I have Wrigleyfield, I have Boys Town, the Southport corridor, Belmont Harbor. I was born and raised a Chicago White Sox fan, and I grew up in Rockford. So my first memories of Chicago are just a few blocks over, and some of the best memories I ever had. So I got into a little trouble during the World Series, actually, just
Yeah.
to watch it.
I feel like you would.
Mr. Ramon was here then. I was a much younger man, but always great to be here. It's always interesting to see another community meeting in town hall, because it's a lot of the same things that we're all dealing with. And I'll just say, you've got a hell of an older woman in Nicole Lee. She's been a real leader among us at council when it comes to really thoughtful issues. Financial issues, she's somebody who gets along with everyone. It doesn't hurt that she feeds us all regularly too. And she makes a lot of friends that way. So really honored to be here to help you guys as you figure out the next steps on the ADU ordinance. So I think we all know what we're talking about, right? An additional or an accessory dwelling unit. So these are those units that are in attics or basements or coach houses in the back of the property, whether there's parking or not. A lot of neighborhoods have these already. My neighborhood is a little bit more dense than yours. So we have multi-unit places throughout. I also have some single family areas, and I have high rises, so I get a little bit of everything. But it was a building type, certainly the coach houses that weren't allowed after the 50s. We redid our zoning code, made it much more car centric. We got away from being a city of 6 million and realized that we were not going to grow. So let's do it by car. And we moved away from that, I think, generally over the last 10 years of the city. That started with Mayor Emanuel, his first TOD ordinance, which allowed additional density near transit and cut the parking requirements.
What does TOD mean?
TOD is a transit-oriented development, which you're going to be hearing more about, because I think there's opportunities, like we were talking about on Archer, to increase units and decrease parking, because people are using transit, bikes, and others. And the ADU pilot came out of that. It was actually under Mayor Lightfoot that came about. I was, previous to being elected alderman 3 years ago, I was chief of staff to Alderman Tom Tunney, who chaired the zoning committee in the last term. So I was part and parcel to everything that happened on that committee and with the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. We set up 5 pilot areas around the city. Half of my ward was included, west of Halsted, but not east of Halsted, which is interestingly the less dense side of my ward. So it was North Lakefront, northwest side, southwest side, far south side, and there was another west side pilot. Where we're able to gauge data as to who was building these, what types were they building. We had a lot of restrictions when it came to single family areas. It was more allowed, and really a lot of them weren't in the pilot. Fast forward, then our pilot sunsetted in 24. We continued the pilot, but wanted to look at a way to make this work citywide. And taking that data, we saw a lot of activity in areas that have a lot of residential real estate activity, and a lot less in some others that could maybe use a little spark to have some more private dollar investment. Our conversation around housing has also changed in that time. I think we're far more aware of the housing crunch. Certainly housing costs have in the last 5 years gone up astronomically. And with that, of course, go all the other costs and your taxes and your ability to make ends meet. So looking at ways for homeowners to add additional, perhaps income-bearing properties or family-sized dwelling units to accommodate their multi-generational living. My mother grew up in a two flat, my husband grew up in a coach house, basically. They didn't call them that in New Mexico, but a lot of us know what multi-generational living looks like. A lot of bungalows used to have 8 to 10 people, but maybe now have 4. So we're really sort of replacing a lot of the density that maybe we saw in other areas. So we worked very hard to get something that worked citywide, and that's a difficult thing to do. Every neighborhood is different, and you want to make sure that you have something that's workable for every neighborhood. And so, ultimately, we looked at making it citywide by right in every multi-unit district, right? So if you could build a 2-flat, you could build an ADU.
Hold on a second. Jack, can you go to the next slide? I have someone in the back navigating.
Thank you, Jack.
Now we're here, just.
Oh, we're here,
Yeah.
great, okay. So real quick then, right, if it's multi-unit already, or we're gonna get to that?
We're gonna get to that.
We're gonna get to that, all right.
That's here.
All right, so that's the news. So the program expansion, a couple big things here is for a coach house, which is a ground up new build. You have to use an apprentice contractor, which is someone who is involved with a nationally recognized apprentice program by the U.S. Department of Labor. It doesn't mean a union contractor necessarily. It doesn't mean an apprentice has to be here, but that contractor has to be involved with apprenticeship. Which was a concession to our friends of labor, which most people thought was actually probably a pretty good thing to have more people involved with apprenticeship. The other thing that we put in as far as single family zones. So if your home is zoned R1, 2, or 3, I believe a lot of R3 in the 11th ward. We put in some guardrails for communities to discuss. So it's not automatic by right in the single family zones. The local alder can opt in by ordinance. And that's something, for example, so my ward, I don't have a lot of single family. Most of it's already multi-unit, even though it's zoned for single family, and there's a lot of that in the city too. So I included all that without any restrictions.
And you have deconversions in a way that we don't down here.
I have where they're gonna take a 3-flat and buy the 3-flat next door, and they're gonna put a single family in the 1 3-flat, and then I've got a vacant lot for their basketball court. And now, instead of having 6 units of housing, I have 1. And they drive everywhere, and they don't shop local. So it's a trend that, and I have areas that the density is growing, especially on commercial corridors, and then areas where the market is forcing larger single family homes on multiple lots. This is a way to combat some of that. So if you have a large single family home, maybe there's the mother-in-law suite or the college kids suite, something else that is at least with the help. If that's the case, so at least there's other options there. Let me just make sure I'm not missing.
So we're here right now. This is the next.
This is the next one. All right. So we did talk about local discretion with those opt-in districts. All right. So yes, let's go to the next slide. So the other thing we did was anything that's multi-unit, like I said, if you build a 2-flat or higher residential, you can build an ADU. We also included in all of our business and commercial districts. Those are B or C zone districts. C1 and C2, C3 is too intense. It doesn't allow residential. Most of my streets are B3 too. I'm not sure about yours. We're not adding them to manufacturing districts or planned developments or industrial areas. You can't put a coach house next to your factory, right? It's only in areas where residential is allowed. And there's different types of conversions, right? So I have a chiropractor. He owns a 4-unit actually, or what could be a 4-unit, commercial first floor, commercial second floor of his office is in 2 units above. He's gonna take that second floor commercial office space and turn it into a residential unit because he doesn't need the office anymore. We have people that are taking their back storerooms of their commercial spaces, right? They've got I have more commercial space than I need in my ward. I know things are different everywhere. But if it's unused and it can be housing off the alley, it's also a grade, so it could be more accessible than a lot of other units. That's an option. And then your typical residential where it's attic, basement, or coach house. So those are sort of the 3 different options. We gave some flexibility on the coach house. We don't limit the square footage, but we do limit the height to 2 stories. I live next to like a 2.5-story coach house. It's an old frame. It's also a condo. So these units could be rental or condo, depending on whatever the market is going for here. We do have fire separation that was built in the ordinance. Let me go back. Everything requires a building permit. Nothing is allowed without a building permit. Everything is meeting our building code. There's a lot of places where they're kind of throwing up stuff. And that's not what we're doing. Everything is gonna be a safe legal unit for everyone to live in. It's also not allowed, we don't allow Airbnb or any short-term vacation rentals. These are apartments for Chicagoans. And that's something, you know, that's income bearing in that kind of way. There's a couple things then on the parking piece. You are able, so when you add an ADU, you don't have to add a parking space, right? And in most cases, everyone, certainly in my ward and in this ward, because of the density, they have one. They have one for a variety of reasons. It's usually all the space they have. There's a formula based on how many units you have and how many you can add. Basically, up to 6, you can add one. Unless you're a larger apartment building, like sometimes on a corner, I've got some courtyards. But when you do have more than one, every other one has to be affordable. So you basically have a 50% affordability requirement, which is kind of hard to pencil for some folks, which is why we see most people doing one. So that's part of the affordability there. We talked about the commercial conversions in the rear of a little bit as well. So we could probably go, so the other thing on parking, I did sort of go through that. You can waive the parking requirement. It's done by administrative adjustment, so it goes through the alderwoman and the local neighbors and whatever process you guys decide. To see if you want to waive parking totally or just for the ADU, which is allowed by right. I think we're good for the next slide.
Which is me.
Great.
You get a break. Thanks, Bennett. So Jack, can we go to the next slide? All right, good. I want to go through just a zoning view of the 11th ward. Behind me, you'll see a map, and I'll make the whole deck available. I see lots of people taking pictures. That's great. I'll send it out too. So it's a little bit easier to see. Your version's gonna be a lot bigger than mine, but as you can see, residential is overwhelmingly what we have here in the 11th ward. I'm giving you a little bit of a breakdown here. The 11th ward has 11,615 properties. Business and commercial properties where ADUs are now allowed based on the new ordinance. Our business and commercial districts, C1 and 2, I believe, and then any of the business districts where residential is allowed. So that makes up, somewhere around 17% of the properties. 19.7% of the residential is greater than R3, and that we didn't get into that in your conversation, but the ordinance as it's written today allows for, as of right, in anything greater than an R3, which would be RT 3.5, RM4. So these are multifamily units. Do you want to explain, Mr. Zoning Chair? What advice? Well, he was the acting chair. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I did vote for you.
She's great.
I did vote for you. I thought you were doing a great job. But RT 3.5, RM4, these are multifamily. You want to talk about the front number and the back number in terms of just
Sure.
giving people some context?
Sorry.
Yes, you are a zoning.
So the letter is the first use, right? R is residential, B is business, C is commercial, M is manufacturing. We're talking R here. The second letter is S, which is single for the 1, 2, 3. T for RT 3.5, which is residential townhouse district. RM for M is multifamily district, and RM4 is really the 3 flat. So we all know what a 3 flat looks like. So that's an RM4 district. 3.5 is a 2 flat. And then once you get higher than that, I live in an RM5 district. I've lived in a 4 flat. But you could actually build a little bit more because we've allowed greater density in those higher residential districts. And then once you get to RM6 and 6.5, you're in a high res situation, basically. Anything really big goes to plan development. So you don't see a lot of straight zoning changes there. But those are the gradations of the residential zone.
Thank you for the quick lesson. Jack, let's go to the next slide. Residential properties in the 11th ward make up 76.32%. These are R1 to R3 districts. I'm gonna just say at the outset here, if you walk down the street in any part of the ward, this right here happens to be the 2900 block of South Emerald. You see single family homes, you see multifamily. This is very common in much of the 11th ward. So these are mixed districts. At one time or another, my predecessors did map amendments that downzoned everything. which is why we see everything listed as single-family residential or RS3. So as Alderman Lawson was saying earlier, he doesn't have a whole lot of RS3. We got nothing but mostly RS3 with some other higher zone properties sprinkled there and about. So I will acknowledge that what the zoning map shows you doesn't necessarily mean that's what exists in reality. Most of our blocks are mixed in this way, and what we have to do now, that the new ordinance has passed, is to come up with a method in order to approve block faces. Now, this is not about approving individual applications for ADUs. By ordinance, what we have to do is to designate an entire block face, and a block face would be the 2900 block of Emerald, from 29th to, let's say, 28th. That is one block face on both sides of the street. So that's how we would look to, by ordinance, create a block that is allowed to have an ADU. Now, we've got some tools that we can use, and you keep me honest here, Bennett. Mechanisms that we can write into, some of the, what's the word I'm looking for right now? I'm sorry, I'm so on the struggle bus. Guardrails, thank you. Include ensuring that the property is being applied for by a homeowner, so owner occupied. I think we like that a lot, owner occupied. I think a lot of the fear that I've heard from folks around the neighborhood about ADUs was that investors were gonna come in and take over and, you know, we wouldn't know what was going on with anything. Another one is limits per block face per year. So there is a three ADUs per year per block face. Addition that we can put into that process as well. And then there's another one that also, what's the other one? Third one. Administrative adjustments, which I think defeats the whole purpose of the ADU program, so we're not gonna talk about that aspect of it. But it's been left to individual wards who didn't opt in the entire ward, and I'll address that here. The reason why I didn't just automatically opt in the entire ward for the ADU program is, first and foremost, we didn't talk about it. Secondly, in the 4 years that I've been in office, and the number of zoning meetings, community zoning meetings that I've had, I know how important community engagement is to all of my neighbors. The purpose of this conversation, it really is to start this conversation about what a fair and equitable process would look like. If we can go to the next slide. I'm being redundant because I should have advanced this slide first. Look, we are no different than the rest of the city in terms of the need for additional housing units, especially affordable housing. And when we say affordable, what I mean is that a working class person can actually afford to rent an apartment in this ward. It is very difficult to find rental units here. I see social media posts all the time about people looking for apartments here. I know from people who have come into our office how difficult that can be. And to hear what some of the rates are for rent, it's pretty shocking. What rents are going for a lot of unimproved properties. Chicago overall has a problem of not having enough housing units. A way to address affordability is just to build more. Build more of whatever you want to build. It doesn't even have to be affordable. By virtue of the fact that we're putting more housing units into the market, prices will come down because there's going to be more available. There's less competition. Thank you.
Yeah, during abundance.
Yeah, I'm gonna, it was a good book. It also, I live in a multi-generational home. I live in a 3-flat, and it's great. It's so, I think, ubiquitous, and how ubiquitous with how I think about Bridgeport, Chinatown, and all of the immigrant communities that make up the 11th ward, and how families have come up over time. You know, it's not out of the ordinary to hear about a grandma or an elderly aunt or uncle living with a family in a building because we help take care of each other. So from that perspective, you know, I'm excited about the opportunity to begin to introduce this into the ward, but I want to make sure that we're collaborating to build a process to ensure that we're doing this in a way that's thoughtful, but also doesn't get in the way of advancing opportunities for people who are interested in building an ADU. And building an ADU is not going to be an inexpensive thing. This is not some sort of thing that you can do on your own. It's going to take an investment. So I also want to say that in this conversation for those who feel like these are all going to pop up overnight. That's just not going to be the case, especially in this environment, in the time that it will take to build and the way things are costing and changing constantly price wise. It's going to be a big investment for whoever does this. But I think a great investment in the ability to build wealth for your families and to add additional units into the housing stock here in the 11th Ward. Jack, next slide, please. So the framework that I'm proposing here is really set up to do 4 things: to ensure that there's community voice. Anybody that's living on those blocks that are being proposed have an opportunity to be engaged in the conversation. Equity, ensuring that all neighborhoods have equal access to ADUs. This is not going to be a case where one neighborhood's not going to have it when others can. Geographic balance, really just looking to make sure that we've got a diverse distribution across the ward, and preventing sort of a concentration in specific areas. Or, in the conversation, maybe that's what we want. This is meant to be a conversation and a dialogue, and then making sure that we're doing this in a transparent way with an open process for block designation, something that really fosters trust and community engagement, allowing residents to have their voices heard. Jack, next slide. This feels a little redundant now. I probably should have. Okay, so here's some just thought starters. This is not, again, I'm not dictating a process. These were ideas that I had. I'm interested in, this is where we'll start sort of the Q&A about ADUs. If you have questions about safety and infrastructure, we'll take those at the end, just because we're in this conversation now. But some of the ideas that we've had around community voice and creating a process that is similar to something that may already exist is, do we do a petition signed by residents or property owners? If we do that, then what's the right percentage required to advance to consideration for approval? I would say that there's no prohibition on neighborhood participation, so there's not going to be a method to just completely outlaw them in an entire neighborhood. So, and when I say an entire neighborhood, a community area, I mean like Chinatown, Bridgeport, Canaryville, McKinley Park. Geographic balance, is there a conversation we have, or what do we think about limits on the number of blocks that could be designated, let's say within a precinct annually? Because precinct borders are something that already exists. So I'm just thinking through, how we can allocate locations, if you will. And then transparency, that there be a notification mechanism for anybody that lives within an area that's being considered, and that there be an opportunity for feedback through a community meeting. I'm gonna stop talking now. I would love for folks who have questions, who have comments about, or input about the ADU process or concerns that you have about ADUs coming in, to just go ahead and start. Go ahead, Andrew.
Can you talk a little bit about the number of ADUs that are existing that are in a gray area? I mean, everybody probably knows lots of people who have a garden apartment in a house. And maybe would like to rent them out, but they're single family zoned and what's the process for bringing on? I know you said a coach house has to be built new.
But we have coach houses all over the city already, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna say what I know about the ward, and I don't have a complete inventory, but we know these exist, right? We know that there are people who are currently renting out basements that aren't legal. So Alderman Lawson's gonna talk about that process and what people should be doing if you are in those situations, right? Because coach houses were outlawed in 57?
Yeah.
Here you go.
So, I'll tell you, this came up a lot, is that we have a lot of, illegal conversions, I might say. And I hear it in my neighborhood. Oh, that building was cut up after the war. And there's, the 3 flats to 6 flat, or they added units and they were never quite permanent. So there's a couple different options. So, if the unit can meet the building code, which is the first thing, right? Or can do the work to meet the building code, then you could either, if you're an ADU allowed area, apply through the ADU program, or you can actually just get a straight zoning change. I've done that in my ward where someone bought a 3 flat, they thought it was a 3 flat, it ended up being 2. All the units were perfectly legal, the city just lost the permits, and so they were able to go through what is a longer process, but still legalize that unit. And right, it costs money, you need an attorney, it doesn't take that long, especially if there's something you're legalizing that's existing, there's 3 mailboxes, 3 water, 3 gas meters, 3, I mean, everyone knew it as a 3 flat, so it was no big deal. But some of these others that are not legal, we're really not dealing within this ordinance, I'll say. And there are people living there, so the city's very reluctant to ever put anybody out. It has to be a real fire trap, in order to do that. We know there's people living in those too. So it doesn't address that issue, but there are it's a new way out to fix it.
Right, and if you're currently zoned, anything greater than a RT3 or RS3, sorry, you could be eligible already, for the additional dwelling unit. So that is possible as well. Other comments, questions?
I have a comment. My name is Sonia Del Rio. I'm your constituent. I'm also here on behalf of the Chicago Association of Realtors, Public Policy, and with Inherent Home. Also, hopefully we'll get either here or elsewhere. But I was really happy to hear you opted in. Because I was under the impression, no, but I saw.
No, I
you
did-
opted in.
I did not opt in for the whole ward. What we're talking about, so just for the people who are online, that there's a woman, say her name again,
Sonia Del Rio.
Sonia Del Rio, she's with
The Chicago Association.
Chicago Association of Realtors, and she asked a question of whether or not I opted. I did not opt the entire ward. So the process that we're discussing right now is what the process will be to opt, or to approve block faces for ADUs. And there have been a number of applications that have already been filed, people that are interested. So I know that there are people interested in the ward, and we can't move forward unless we have a process, and that's why we're having this discussion tonight. Yeah.
My neighbor here.
Yes, and he was the first one. He was the first one that came to me. I haven't forgotten about you. Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about taxes and how taxes can be impacted if somebody builds an ADU on my block? Is that gonna impact my taxes at all?
According to the assessor's office, no. And actually, we asked this question of the assessor at an event last week, about affordable housing in the ward. And I asked this specific question because we knew that we were gonna have this discussion. It does not increase your neighbor's, property values. Your tax bill will go up in the fact that you're adding square footage, so you're paying for additional square footage, the value of your home is only increased by the number of square feet you're adding. Did I miss anything, Alderman?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd just like to see this process be as simple and easy as possible, because my understanding of the ordinance was to make this simple and easy, and so people wouldn't have to go through what used to be a $10,000 process to get rezoning and get special variance. So I would like this process to just be as easy as possible.
I'm just gonna repeat it so that folks online can hear. So the comment in the room was to request that this process be as easy, as simple as possible, so that people don't have to spend thousands of dollars as they used to for an entire zoning change. Yes.
Regarding the proposition that it would be a petition, I would just have a concern or like a question around how we're gonna ensure language access. Like we're really blessed to be in a really diverse neighborhood. So making sure that like everybody in the neighborhood or everybody on that block is getting all of their questions answered in the language that they're most comfortable in, would be a concern of mine.
I'm just gonna, again, repeat it for the folks that are online. So the comment and the question that was just asked was related to language access. This is going to be a petition process to ensure that in this really diverse neighborhood, and ward that we have in the 11th ward, that anything that is set in writing, is provided in multiple languages so that anybody that is being presented the information has it in the language they speak.
And
Yeah.
if I may add,
Sorry.
it's also their ability to ask questions about the petition itself, so like. We would need to have somebody who could speak with them and answer those.
And the ability to communicate with whoever is presented the petition to them. Okay, go ahead.
I'll just chime in real quick. Nobody talks more about language access downtown than your older woman. She's the only one who I think has everything at 2 or 3 things that I see, so. I just wanted to give you another compliment because it's an issue that you raised that has not been raised in the same way before, and thank you for it, and thank you for bringing it up too.
Thank you, and I appreciate you chiming in on that. I think that's absolutely something we want to make sure is worked into the process. We can get to the details, but thank you for raising it and uplifting it. Yes, Kate.
Yeah, we would really appreciate, about, so the adjacent areas to your ward, right? So, McKinley Park, most of McKinley Park is in the 12th, which is the only area on the southwest side that is open by right. And so what we really appreciate is you consider what to do with the few blocks we have in the 11th in McKinley Park. If we could really think about neighborhood cohesion as a criteria, because, when those lines move, it can be really confusing to our residents because people still don't know that they're in the 11th, even though it was 3 years ago. And thinking about, why can my neighbor the next block over do it and I can't, and really want to make sure that we're thinking about that. Especially since we do have such a high percentage of multi-generational families who would like to take advantage of this.
I'm gonna summarize because I didn't remember that word for word. Kate from the McKinley Park Development Council is just uplifting that McKinley Park is the only neighborhood on the southwest side that is fully where it's legal to do ADUs as of right today, except for the fact that part of McKinley Park falls in the 11th ward. So the concern here is the consideration for adjacent neighborhoods, so in this case McKinley Park, because ward borders move over time. Sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out of one ward and not in the other, and it can be confusing. So thank you for flagging that. It's definitely something that we'll take into consideration as we're working out this process.
It's the 12th ward.
It's the 12th ward, yes.
So,
I'm sorry, the 12th ward, not all of McKinley Park, all of the 12th ward. Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you. Did I see a hand up over here? Yes, go ahead.
I would just echo that comment. I think that the 12th ward opted in, and Bridgeport having so many houses and basement apartments and everything already is kind of proof that it's probably worth it to just opt the whole ward in. I know that that's a political challenge for you, so I don't envy that challenge for you. However, I do think that, the point of zoning at all is to lack predictability. When these ward boundaries do change, as they did 3 years ago, you lose the predictability because suddenly you could be at a different politician win, and, we appreciate your pro housing in the 11th ward today, but, that could be in the future, so it feels like we should just opt the whole ward in like the 12th.
So the comment that was just made was a shout out to Kate's comment and just supporting that the call for the part of the 11th ward or opting the entire 11th ward in to the ADU ordinance versus doing this on a block face level. Did I get all that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Echo that comment. We have a massive affordability crisis of housing in the city of Chicago. I don't get why we would go, block to block, opting in into the ward. Let's just do the entire ward at once instead of having to go block by block, which may be a process that takes years. It may switch, if there would be a role change. I just say opt in the entire 11th ward.
So that was another call to opt in the entire word. Thank you for your comment. Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to just add a couple of points. So, the single family zones is where this is new in the city. And there are some alders that were, put me in with certain restrictions. There were some alders that said, put part of my ward in. Cause you could do like 4 blocks in a row or like bounded by 35th, Pershing, Halsted, Morgan, however you want to do that. There are a lot of alders that are not having this conversation either. And I just want to point that out too, because I think for those single family zones, we're sort of looking at this like a pilot. People are seeing how it rolls out, making sure nobody's getting overwhelmed, which we learned in our pilot. So just those 2 things I wanted to add to the conversation.
Thank you. Andrew, go ahead. And then Matt.
Just a kind of a suggestion along those lines, instead of maybe doing block faces, would it be possible to pursue, larger squares? So, from from Archer Avenue to 31st Street, and then from Halsted to Racine or something like that, you know. This block, you know, instead of going the old speed hump sort of route, getting, you know, percentage on street.
So just to repeat the suggestion, it was to not do this on a single block basis, but to do more larger areas essentially, bounded by street. Do you wanna?
I'll
Yeah.
just say, so, the block is the smallest increment you
Yeah.
can do. You can't do an address or
Yeah.
a range of addresses. So, right, it could be anything larger than that, but the block is the smallest increment.
So
I
is
just want to make
that
that.
a block bounded by streets, because it sounded before like it was this, you know, this side of the street.
Oh, no,
So
I said both sides of the street,
Block
yeah, the
face,
block
so the
face.
smallest increment you can do is the block face, which is what we know as the two sides of the street that face each other between the two cross streets.
Okay, so would the buildings across the alleys be included?
No,
No,
no.
in this scenario,
In
no.
this scenario, now, what other people have done is they've done, right, 4 or 5 blocks here, 4 or 5 blocks there. So there's some more cohesion, but if I just wanted to point out, the smallest increment you could do is a single block on both sides. You can't do an address or a couple addresses.
Yes, Matt,
I'd love to see in whatever process ends up being, some consideration for the existing inventory of coach houses. We've maybe got 2/3 multifamily, or it's not zoned 2/3 multifamily. And so the concern, I think, would be if there's a petition, it's gonna both result in a ton of applications. And that's gonna be really just hot up in a bottleneck for needing to have a process for each individual applicant. It might also be harder to petition for coach houses to put out the alley. And so, I think if there's any way to factor it in where there are already coach houses, rather than having it just be a petition, I think that's a good consideration, because if you just go to the neighbors, you're gonna get to both voices, both in favor and against, rather than just focusing on what's already built in the block.
so I'm gonna take a shot at summarizing what you just said, Matt. Matt always has great things to say, he's very soft-spoken. The suggestion here is that we take a look at the existing coach house stock. And, you know, rather than doing a petition type process, which admittedly could, you know, we would get, if we got a ton of applications and, you know, the petitions don't always get to everybody that lives on a block, especially if you don't know that there's a coach house in back, maybe you're just going to the front of the house. That there's more consideration for what the current makeup is, and maybe that's an argument to not do a petition, is what I'm hearing. Is that fair?
To not make it the sole
To
criteria.
not make it the sole criteria. Got it. Thank you. Did I get all of it covered?
If you go to a block, where many malls, like over where there's new houses, that you're like, you're gonna get a different conversation than if you're up for the side. of the house.
Yes, so the point being, if you're trying to do this on a block with a ton of single family homes already, it's gonna be a very different conversation than a block in the northeast corner of the ward where there's already a lot of multifamilies existing. I saw like a couple of hands over here. Sarah, go ahead.
That's what town board says we have to try our residents and Chinese on. We have the same competition in Chinese society.
Yeah, and I know that the CPCAC has already hosted a conversation. I'm not opposed to that. This is just the town hall meeting. This is not, no final decisions are being made, so I don't have a date. Happy to work with you guys to plan one. Cause I'll need your help. I'll need your help anyway, but I feel like, you know, we're partners on a lot of stuff. This will be no different.
Follow up.
I'm sorry, just, I want to repeat the question for the Zoom, just to memorialize it here. Question was raised about when this conversation is going to take place in Chinatown, where it's accessible in the language that's accessible to that community. And as I mentioned, I know that CPCAC has already hosted an event about ADUs. I'm happy to work with CPCAC to have subsequent conversation there too as well. This is the opening conversation. Again, no final decisions are gonna be made. In fact, you're gonna see a request to, if you are interested in being part of a working group on this to help with this. I'm not trying to sit in the room and do this by myself. That's why we're having these conversations. They're not always easy to have, but this is the job, folks. And what I promised you from the beginning is transparency. So I'm never gonna be afraid to have an uncomfortable conversation. Kate, go ahead.
Regarding Matt's question, it is my understanding that the existing coach houses were grandfathered in. Well, they've been legal non-conforming for as long as they've been there, Charlie Spitz, and you are being taxed if you have one. So is there actually any need for those blocks to be designated in, or is that just if other people next door wanna have a coach house?
I think existing, so the comment or question that Kate's just asked is, to go back to the conversation earlier about existing, housing stock that falls into this ADU category, specifically coach houses. I do believe that coach houses are grandfathered in. I'm looking at him nodding, but I'm gonna hand him the mic because I don't want to say something wrong here.
I've been a city employee for 22 years dealing with the building department and old records. And, yes, it's existing, you know, it's there, there's photos, but it doesn't mean there was ever a legal building permit or it was lost in some fire in the vault in the 40s. So it's not the easiest thing to do if you need to do work on an existing coach house. This will make it easier because we've legalized them. In most cases, you aren't gonna be able to expand an existing coach house either, because the square footage requirements are a little different. But, the life safety requirements are different now too, so it's a little tricky with the existing ones, depending on what kind of shape they're in and how good the records are from whenever it was built.
Is it safe to assume if the tax assessor knows it's there, that you're good?
One would hope. No, yeah, I mean, right, if it says that you have multiple units on that property, you know, that's obviously the best way to prove it up, forget the water meter.
And I'll just say, just because this is a rule in life, it's never safe to assume, so. I don't want you to take it back from this conversation and say, well, Alderman Lee and Alderman Lawson said. Best to double check that with the people you need to talk to, and that would be like the zoning department.
Yeah, get a certificate.
You can get a certificate of zoning compliance. If you're going to, but generally, if something already exists, and there are things that are legal non-conforming, you used the term earlier, until you need to make some changes to that, it really isn't necessary, because it becomes an issue, unless it's a safety issue that someone is flagging, it is about getting a building permit. So if you wanna do a rehab of a bathroom or a kitchen or something that requires a permit, and they look to see, the building department is looking to see if, what you're requesting for the number of units is allowable in your zoning category, that's when that's gonna be raised as more of an issue. Maggie, you had a
I have
question?
a question. We have two odd blocks, near where I live, Elias Court. The back, front of Elias Court, the back end of Loomis faces, there's only, and so there's one set of houses, Farrell Street's like that. So the people face the back and the garages of their odd streets over there, and I think it's because of Archer.
I feel like I'm gonna check that one off of my bingo card. Knew someone was gonna ask that tonight. We are unique in that way. I don't, do you have this up north?
I have some. There was a railroad right away that made the blocks a little narrow and one, so I have a park, a street, and then it's the garages in the back of houses.
Yeah, so the issue that was just
Yeah.
raised here in the room was the 11th ward has some blocks where the street like
Should be the alley.
should be the alley. But so you've got houses that front the street and then they're looking at the back of someone else's home. So that needs to be worked out, you know, and I think that's part of the discussion I want to make sure is like part of the conversation. As again, tonight's the conversation starter. I would love, we'll do a sign-in sheet or for anybody that wants to continue to have the conversation and continue to provide input. This is gonna be an ongoing process. I'll go to the next slide, Jack, real quick. Cause I know we're getting close on time. And I'll stay behind if we need to answer some more questions, but here's just sort of my thoughts on next steps. If you're interested in being part of this committee to help develop the process, please sign up to volunteer. If I can have one of my staff members, set up a separate, sheet for us. My staff looking at their phones, hey guys. Can you please get a separate sign-up sheet and put ADU at the top of it, and then folks that are interested in being part of that conversation, please sign up, and then we'll organize a follow-up meeting. We'll make sure that we do something in Chinatown as well, to make sure that, you know, folks that aren't here, you know, this isn't meant to be a Bridgeport meeting, by the way. This is an 11th ward meeting that happens to be held here in Bridgeport. We do move the meetings around. I just want to be clear about that. We're not trying to be Bridgeport centric. I also was trying to show off the Remova and the loft. It's a great space and it's really, really happy to have it here in the community. What I would love to see is if we can get to a timeline where by the end of June, we can release a survey, because again, people who are like self-identifying to come be a part of the conversation, I really appreciate. And there's lots of people who don't engage in this way, who do care about what's happening in the ward, especially on their own block. So I want to make sure that we're putting together information and getting as much feedback as possible. And I'm not looking for this to be held up for months, you guys. I would like to be expeditious about this. So I would be looking to finalize a process by some time in August where we can share all of that with residents by the fall. That is the loose timeline in my head. I think that's doable. I'm gonna need help and I'm asking for it. But I want diverse voices. I want people from all corners of the ward, different housing types. If you're a property owner versus a renter, whoever you are, there's nothing that's gonna stop you from being part of the conversation, except for the fact that you do need to be a resident of the 11th ward. Okay, I'm gonna make that clear because this is an 11th ward process. I wanna make sure that 11th ward folks are the ones that are helping to lead that process. Yes, ma'am.
A very simple question. I'm just thinking about the block that I happen to live on. If you're adding units, parking on our block is sometimes almost confrontational now. So you add more units, where are these people supposed to park their cars?
So the comment that was just raised and the question was about parking. I'm just repeating it for the people that, yeah. If we're adding units, and parking is already a challenge across the ward, and that's, that is the top thing that we talk about at zoning meetings, community zoning meetings, is, whatever you're doing, where are the people gonna park their cars? So I'll answer that in two ways. So we're talking about adding more than likely just one single small unit. We're not talking, it's a 22-foot high ceiling on the height. The folks that already have garages, if they're gonna do anything, they're gonna build on top of the garage. So in all likelihood, one additional unit. And the assumption, you're assuming that someone's gonna be driving a vehicle at the end of the day. And I will tell you that what we see now more is that younger people aren't interested in cars. That's not to say that
I'm aware of that. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. I used to get a lot here in my neighborhood. However, I can say on the Pittsburgh block that I live on, never in my life, living in several other major cities, have I ever seen people be so possessive of parking lot. And I was just sitting here thinking, I think they took that survey and went down our street. I think that people would just go, there's nowhere to park or not park. I was just curious. I agree. I see a lot of young people riding bikes and the L and everything. I give them a lot of credit for that, but, I was just curious. That's it.
Yeah, so do you wanna talk about parking again?
Sure,
Sure.
Possessive about parking is a different story though, or it's like dibs in the summer or. That's not, I don't even get involved in unemployed stuff, but you're right, there is not a parking requirement for the ADU. It is just the one per property and it's 3 per block is sort of one of those limits. I have a ward, I have a block that has a lot of deconversions, right? I probably have, 10 projects out of 40 in the last 5 years. And in that busy block, I also have my most ADUs, which is 2. So, while I have lost units, I have gained a few back, but overall it's a loss. Every block is gonna be different, but we haven't seen an area where so many have happened in just one block. Part of that's cost, part of that's, most people are gonna have to take a loan out for this unless you've got a couple $100,000 in cash laying around.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a homeowner requirement. So we just haven't seen everyone get overwhelmed. There's fears that every bungalow becomes a 2 flat. We haven't seen that in the pilot or any of the other areas. That being said, there may be a shift in parking. But yeah.
I'm not saying it should have close parking.
Right.
I'm just saying.
No, just how is it?
How do you handle,
Yeah.
if you have a problem with possessive parking already, right, it's something else, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a larger question. I do, and again, people are, how did you put it? Very possessive of parking.
For that, said confrontational.
Confrontational.
That's different.
Yeah, and
It's unreal, man. I've really never seen it anywhere.
I think it's real unfortunate when people get into arguments about a parking space. Listen, you don't own the street. No matter what, I don't get to park in front of my house every day. I park where there's an available spot. Sometimes it's halfway down the block. Sometimes, I've got to go around the block a couple times. We live in the city, folks. That's not to say that some people have too many cars. I mean, listen, there are people that live in one apartment that may have 7 vehicles, which boggles my mind. But currently there are no laws that prevent anybody from doing that.
The people who live upstairs and they have 2 licensed drivers, they have 4 vehicles, so there you go. So they're part of the
Yeah.
street, so they're already.
That's something we should be looking
You
at.
should charge
Alderman.
more for your second city sticker.
Yeah, or, whatever the
Third.
threshold is.
No,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, I do
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah,
And I understand it's not gonna be on necessarily on every block, and it'll be a certain number.
but there's definitely the possibility that an increased number of cars will be on the street. It could also be the case that the young family that's lived there for the last 12 years now has a child that is turning 16, and all of a sudden they're gonna buy them a car. So the argument that this is gonna to cause so many more cars in the neighborhood, I think, reasonable, a reasonable expectation is that if you have teenagers that live on a street, at some point, some parent's gonna get them a car. And that will increase the number of vehicles, and that would have nothing to do with bringing on additional housing units. Yeah, yeah, and just so you know, the city has actually removed, that was La Spada, right? We've removed the requirement for parking within a transit-oriented design or development area. So if you are within a mile of high-density transit, you fall into a TOD, which is much of the 11th Ward currently. I'm sorry, you missed that earlier. It's a transit-oriented, development zone. So if you are within a mile of high-density transit, so the red line and the orange line, if you look at it that way, is it 1 mile? It is 1 mile.
Depends on the street you're on. If on a pedestrian street, it's a mile, it's a half mile otherwise.
Okay, frequent buses, so like the 62 is a very high density bus line. So the Archer corridor falls into the TOD as well. I will tell you that, because parking is such a concern, when we have individual zoning meetings and someone's trying to build a 3 flat, I'm always insisting on a 1-to-1. One parking unit per, 1 parking space per unit. But that is not the requirement across the city. Hold on 1 second, Anna, Grace, and then Anna.
I just want to make a comment, and this is the same thing that I told you yesterday. I know that, we are very much pro more density in housing and having more ADU system. But just remember that ADUs are very expensive to build because they're very small square footage.
Yeah, thank you. That's Grace Chan McKibben from the Coalition for a Better Chinese American Community. Just a reminder that, that they're pro housing organization. They want more affordable units and ADUs. And a reminder to everybody that these are not going to be easy to build or inexpensive to build. Thank you for that. Anna, go ahead. And then sir in the back.
I'm wondering how you're gonna make sure that this committee gets formed and meets, because I remember back when Carlos Diaz was your chief of staff, there was like a plan to have several committees, and I tried to join one. I know people who joined participatory budgeting, and then that committee stopped meeting, and then the mural space that they were planning to build, Amazon got to use that space. So some of us feel burned before. So what is the plan to make sure this committee happens and meets its goal?
So the question was, and thank you for the question and the comment, what is going to be put into place to make sure that this committee actually comes to fruition, meets regularly and meets the timeline? Because we do not have a good track record. Now, you guys, as you get to know me, if you don't know me already, I'm not here to gloss things over. We absolutely had a failure when it came to participatory budgeting. I've had some staffing issues. I'm fully staffed at this point now. And I've set forward already a timeline that we're gonna shoot to make here. So I will, before the end of the week, reach out to all of the people that sign up to set a meeting date. Before the end of the week, I will also schedule a second meeting for Chinatown for the Chinese speakers that are not able to participate in this conversation tonight. So I've set up some milestones. I've set it on the record and I'm putting it out there. and this is recorded, and so people hold me accountable. I really am looking for help with this from the community. So sign up, please come be a part of the conversation, and help us, create this process. Thank you. Sir, in the back.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the cost of these.
Yeah.
A friend of mine literally built the ADU that's in the picture behind you. And that is a 700 square foot home that costs $500,000, so literally 490. And garden apartments that are ADUs are costing about 150,000. These are the utility sidecar that it takes. I think the concern that everybody's gonna build an ADU on every block and every opportunity, it's just not true. And so for those concerned that it's gonna add a lot of cars or a lot of density, this is the most gentle density possible. This doesn't make any financial sense from investment perspective. A garden apartment renting at whatever rate is in the neighborhood, if it's 150,000 to build, this is not gonna add a bunch of density that is like in any meaningful way. So it's just something to get something started in each community. So I do wish that we pass that across the entire city of Chicago and not on a block by block basis.
So I'm just gonna repeat it for the folks that are on the Zoom. The comment here was, the gentleman knows the person who actually built the ADU that's in the picture on the screen right now. I did a Google search for images related to ADUs, and I was like, that's perfect, because I needed to be able to show. But the one that's pictured here, he knows the person that built that, and you said it was 500,000 to build. That's $500,000 spent on a coach house. He also shared with us that to put an ADU in a garden unit in a basement costs about 150,000. So the notion that this is going to be easy and everybody's gonna be running and flooding to do this is just kind of a misnomer. Because of what it would take to do, there's not gonna be a glut of these things. Actually, so in the pilot area, how long did the pilot run?
5 years.
5 years, and how many ADUs did you get out of it in your ward?
Oh, and mine?
Yeah,
Built
built in that time?
16.
16 in a 5-year period.
It was only half my ward. So maybe I'd be 32.
Or we'll give you 32, but even in the course of 5 years. So thank you for the comment, and thank you for the reminder, again, just to reinforce that this is not an easy thing to do. Again, I'm gonna say again, for my sake here, the reason I didn't just opt into it is because I hadn't had a conversation, and the residents in this ward, the voters in this ward, let me know all the time that they want engagement on this, which is why I didn't just automatically opt into that. We're gonna have a conversation. If the conversation comes out differently and we do larger swaths, or if there's overwhelming support to allow this to happen worldwide, I'm open to the conversation, folks. So if you want to have a say, no matter which side of the fence you're on this, please, please, please be a part of the conversation. If you don't want to be at the table, like, make sure that when you get a survey that you're answering it, that you're asking your neighbors to do the same, because this is what this is gonna be based on. It is 8:05. We started 15 minutes late. I'm happy to stay much longer. Are there any more questions about ADUs before I kind of toss it back to questions about infrastructure or safety? Andrew? Infrastructure. Okay, any more ADU comments or questions? Again, if you're interested, please sign up in the rear. You'll be contacted before the end of the week, acknowledging that you signed up for it, and we'll plan a date. And again, we'll work with CDCAC to get a date on the calendar for the one in Chinatown. Thank you, Alderman Lawson.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you. Yes.
Good luck. Thanks.
Okay, Andrew.
I'm interested in some feedback on the feasibility of doing more quick build pedestrian structure in the ward. I know you talked about how expensive it is to build certain things, but like when 33rd Street is completely torn up right now, and then CDOT comes back to stripe it. Isn't it feasible and pretty affordable that maybe they can daylight intersections with flex posts and things like that don't cost a lot of money and can give us some measurable improvement, especially maybe around schools and other areas where we really need this kind of stuff, prevent people from parking in the process.
Yeah, so the question was just asked about infrastructure, what can be done on a relatively inexpensive basis and quick quickly, what did you use, quick build as a term? Especially as, construction and restoration is happening on current projects. Could we do things like better striping and flex posts, to create, some more safety for both cyclists and pedestrians? Carl, can you take this one?
Yeah, I can share a few thoughts on that one. So, first, just in general, as we touched on, if you have a specific concern in your neighborhood, alert your alderman, she can share that. We can do a standalone traffic study. But to your point, there actually is a lot of benefit to trying to do these projects along with other projects that are happening out there. And I don't know if you want to touch on the cul-de-sac provision that's being done as part of one of these sewer projects, but that is an example of, as the construction is happening out there, we do kind of coordinate and have an opportunity to make some modifications.
Yeah,
I don't know, to touch on.
Sure.
Does that quick build stuff need a traffic study? Just to put in
Well-
some flexible bump outs, whole traffic study
Yeah.
takes 2 years.
No, so I will say, when we use the term traffic study, it's really just documenting that a request was made, we reported this for tracking, and we reach a conclusion. Most of these neighborhood locations do not involve needing to do traffic counts or doing engineering survey. It really is just kind of reviewing the location and coming up with those treatments that are gonna be possible there. So in many cases, it's not necessarily data collection or analysis or design that takes a lot of time. The reality is, though, we do have a very small team that is serving the entire city. So it is a little bit of a resource balancing on our side. And then, of course, once CDOT reaches its conclusion, if it does get into the funding component of it as well, as far as if this needs funding, could be menu, could be those other sources, but that's another portion that needs to be worked out. But as you touched on, there is a benefit to try and combine these projects and kind of piggyback on other projects that are already happening out there. So.
So, hold on one second, I'm just gonna finish answering this one and I'll come right to you. So perfect example of this, exactly what you're saying is that we just finished repaving Wentworth. If you ride through Wentworth now, you will see that there's a striped bike lane. Bikes can always ride on the street, so bikes are allowed, there's not a street where they are disallowed. Whether or not there is a bike lane of any sort, protected or otherwise, bikes are able to ride alongside vehicles. Then we have to share the road. What exists in Chinatown now is a shared bike lane, right? So you know how narrow it is in Chinatown, but this actually helps, I think, both motorists and cyclists to delineate where they should be on the road. So I think that's a great suggestion. Andrew, we can take a look at that as 33rd is brought back online. Once the restoration is done, we can work with Carl to see what can be done in that instance and in any of these other places where we're laying new pavement. To look at those opportunities. Yeah, and schools, absolutely, we've been trying to, you and I have talked over the years, we've been adding bump outs to school zones, that is a big concern. And again, we have to kind of meter this out as we can, just because of budget, reasons. But yeah, I'm looking to make sure that we're making, school zones as safe as possible. You are gonna see, what do we have coming up, on 31st Street? There's a bump out that we're looking at over there. 31st and Troop, but I know it's an intersection that you and I have talked about. I think you probably crossed kids over there as well. Sir, you had a question?
One question, what about our residential streets getting repaid? 29th Street, east of Halsted Street, east of Halsted.
East of Halsted, 29th Street, east of
29th
Halsted.
Street, like way back. I mean, it's like driving down line too. Same thing, Emerald Avenue, 37th and maybe 39th, I go around the church, I take the street one way from
Yes.
the church.
Yeah,
37th, 38th, and Emerald, horrible.
so
What's the process?
so the process is, when we get a complaint about it, or someone suggests that, we take a look at the road for repaving and make it a candidate, it gets added to a list, and then, every year, we get surveys from CDOT that give us road conditions, and paving conditions, so we're looking at addressing the worst streets first. I will say for,
29th Street's horrible.
come drive on my street, come drive on my street. And I'm not just saying that because I live on it. It is literally the worst street in the ward, and it's been so before I got into office, and it's still not done. Sorry, Carl, you have to take the heat for CDOT right now. CDOT is way behind on projects right now. There are projects, I told you about the traffic signal that was approved before I came in the office. That's not scheduled till 2027. It is very, very frustrating, having to deal with the fact that we approve projects in 1 year and they don't get started. And then we're asked to approve projects in the next year and they still don't get started. And then CDOT wants to come back and ask for more money. That's the reason and Andrew, I think I mentioned this to you. We approved a raised crosswalk between McWayne and Palmisano 2 years ago.
That was back out.
Yeah, and we were real happy about this. It was great. You know, it was $100,000. We got an engineering estimate. And then if things get waylaid, things get more expensive. So, you know, the city came back and said, okay, we're gonna need, that went up to 300% basically. And we were being asked to take that out of our menu money. I absolutely not see that. You're gonna have to find the money. So to their credit, they found the money. That's gonna get done. But I use that just as an example to elucidate to you or to show that we hear you, we've got it. And if we don't get your name, and Sharon's making notes, she's gonna make sure that she can tell you, I'm sure somebody else has complained about it, kind of where it is in the process.
Yeah, it's sent for an engineering estimate, so.
We're trying to stay on top of it, but my street was the worst street, and that was Gia Biaggi in my first menu meeting with her. This is the street that's gonna be repaved through the capital improvement program. And I actually said to her, I was like, oh my God, not everybody's gonna think I did my street on my own. But I'm like, it was designated before I got there. 24th place between Wentworth and Stewart. If you ever want to do the obstacle course that it is, please come on by. We have a lot of back streets. We have a lot of terrible alleys. It's no comfort to any of you that we can't do all the things that we need to do, but please know that we're aware,
I know it's a city-wide problem.
it is,
It's a city-wide problem.
yeah.
Besides the 11th ward.
I think it is a citywide problem. I mean, I'm sorry Bennett's not here to sort of comment on that as well. It is a challenge constantly. Look, between material costs going up, the weather that we've had, the very extreme weather that we've had to go through, projects get delayed, and then it's a snowball effect. Any other questions about infrastructure? Anything for public safety? Anything? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It is maybe an adjacent question. Safety is not for the plan of market. Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about your recent vote against the ordinance allowing for COPA to investigate and take punitive actions against police officers that are documented to belong to hate groups.
So the question in the room was regarding my recent vote against the ordinance that allows for police officers who are members of extremist groups to be investigated by COPA and have the consequence of potentially losing their job. Let me be clear in that I'm not supportive of extremist groups of any kind. I want accountability within the police department. I want accountability for every department in the city of Chicago, including elected officials, which is something that was not available in the ordinance as it was. I shared this in my newsletter.
Expanding that to.
Yes,
city?
yes, I am working on that. I am absolutely working on that. I tried to get something in there where I was more than happy to include myself in that, but I was told that at the time, just because we ran out of runway, for that ordinance to be amended, I offered to have aldermen involved or included in that group, and for a whole host of legal reasons, not the least of which is that I'm duly elected, and if I was fired for it, that would be taking away your right as voters. If you voted for me, it would sort of be negating your right to elect an official. So whereas my job mandate be able to be taken away, there should have been consequences at every level of government for involvement in extremist groups. That was my position, and because that wasn't in the ordinance, I didn't vote for it. But I am working on it, and I've said that I think that there needs to be an expansion because it's simply not fair, and then we're letting a lot of other things go. It's been documented in the past that there have been cases of other employees behaving badly and with extremist groups where the city hasn't been able to remove somebody totally, or we've been sued over it. So that's a conversation. I think it needs to be more expansive and there needs to be accountability across the board, including for elected officials. Any other questions? Yes.
Hope the post office is ever gonna reopen.
Oh, the question was about the post office in Canaryville on Halsted. So for the record, the postal service is managed at the federal level. We call regularly, because obviously we're the most accessible sort of unit of government, so everybody calls our office. We have been in regular contact with the post office to no avail in terms of getting a hard reopen date. Sharon, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, I mean, like, we contact the congressman's office, the senator's office. I don't know what to tell you about the US Postal Service. I get mail for people, who claim to live at my address but don't. I get mail maybe, every other day, and I don't even get service out of this post office. I think there's major issues with the United States Postal Service. Not the least of which is that they're not postmarking things when you take them to the post office. I have real concerns about the impact on elections for mail-in votes, as well as, we just got through tax season. That's another thing, that was very disconcerting. So
We put in complaints about the Town Post Office as well as.
Yeah.
And
we filed complaints on behalf of a lot of folks, with regard to the postal service. We haven't found a good, an effective method to actually get change made. But know that we are constantly, trying to get information. We've actually had postal workers come in and ask us to help them because the people that were based out of there are now having to work out of a different post office too. So it's a very big nuisance on many levels. But thank you for the question. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you. Yes, sir.
Just to add to that story on the post office, if it ever does open, there's nowhere to park because of the bump outs and protective bike lanes. I drive past houses being like, man, if this post office ever opens again, where are you gonna park?
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. So the point that was just raised was that if that post office ever reopens, no one's gonna be able to go there because the parking spaces have been taken up by the protected bike lanes that were added over there. Yeah, so that is a challenge that will need to be addressed for sure. Yeah. Anything else before we close things out? I feel like yes, please.
I kind of want to keep the conversations more like housing and displacement and touch on the San Diego development and the Chicago Fire Stadium. As a resident and my neighbors were more concerned about like increased housing, costs and like property speculation. So I was curious what you're doing now to like advocate for constituents, prevent like displacement pressures from Chicago fires.
Sure. Thanks for the question. So the question that was asked, was what am I doing? I'll rewind, that you and your neighbors are concerned. We're shifting the conversation to more affordable housing and displacement as a concern. What am I doing with respect to the 78 development to help prevent curb, ensure that our residents in the 11th ward, whether that's Chinatown, Bridgeport, or any other part of the ward that's adjacent, isn't negatively impacted by the development at 78. Did I get all of that? Okay. So I will say, so you all know it's very public. I spoke in support of the development at the 78 with the fire stadium. It's the first phase of development that we had Joe Mansueto, owner of the Chicago Fire, who was willing to build an entire stadium on his own dime. The 78 has been sitting there for a very long time with zero development, and it's ripe for development. Again, we need more development in the city of Chicago. That's not to say that we need to do that without any thoughtfulness about the impact of development as a whole. There is going to be several phases of redevelopment over there. I think that there are many other factors that put pressure on affordability and displacement. That stadium and the development over there is a big one, but it's certainly not the only one because we already know there's pressure in Chinatown, in Bridgeport. Bridgeport is getting increasingly more expensive. And this is about, again, increasing the housing stock. So what I've been doing since I've been in office is continuing to increase density where I can. We've done nothing but upzone actually, to ensure that we're able to build more dense housing. but we do that in a very thoughtful and collaborative way with the community. So as I continue to do, I'm gonna continue to do that, and keep an open dialogue with community organizations like CPCAC. Use and leverage the position that I have as the alderperson to be able to be in conversation and negotiation with developers about the needs of the community, whether that's jobs and investment for businesses, and really working also with other elected officials at the state level and maybe with the assessor as well on what levers can we pull to protect property owners here so that we don't see increased rents and the pushing people out of the community. That's the last thing that I want to see. I live in Chinatown and live at 24th place, okay? I can walk to the park. I've seen the impact. I'm 51 years old. A lot of this and a lot of the things that we have talked about as a community in terms of the loss of small businesses, the institutional places like Seven Treasures and Tasty Place, like I feel those acutely because those are all places I used to get quick dinners from, quick affordable dinners from, and I know that that supported the community. I think the other thing that we have to, it is a broad, we have to look at this from a wide angle view. We have to support small businesses and family-owned businesses. We have to be able to help them plan for succession. If they want to retire and they don't have children that want to take over, but we want to keep that in the community. How do we do that? You know, I wish I would have, you know, I was in Mexico when Seven Treasures decided to close and I couldn't come back in time, but I would have certainly made an offer on their noodle recipe. Well, no, but for real, like I totally miss that. And a lot of other people do too. And other businesses in the 11th Ward, you know, Uncle Johnny's on 32nd and Normal is my favorite place for beef and they closed down. We need to be able to encourage more small businesses. I would love to see, you know, more small business, but it's not an easy thing to do, especially with increasing rents. The rents have already been high in Chinatown, had to do with nobody else around other than agreed by a lot of people. I'm not quite sure how to fight that back necessarily, because what I need is for property owners, also for longtime property owners, to reinvest in their properties. We have a lot of buildings that have not been updated in a really long time, which makes things, I think, more difficult for people to rent and to stay in and for what they're paying for at the end of the day. So all that to say, I don't have a real direct answer for you, but I hope I've begun to address your concerns. I know that all of these concerns are out there. It is not lost on me. Please know that. Okay, how about time for one last question? Yes.
Yes.
I saw you earlier. You're Sophia. Hi.
Regarding that meeting and how you may vote considering on the amendments to the ordinance that wants to enhance penalties when crimes are committed in student safety zone. I was wondering if you know, it was in a really, you know, that didn't that much, you know, at all. So I was wondering how you would vote on it.
So I'm not part of that committee. I was actually, I came to attend the meeting. I didn't even know what was on the agenda, to be honest. So I haven't read that ordinance in full, so I don't want to answer you, and I'm not trying to dodge the question. I literally haven't read the ordinance. So I don't know how I would vote on it if it makes it out of committee, but I am not a member of the Public Safety Committee. I am a member of the Police and Fire Committee, one of 7 committees that I sit on. There was supposed to be a continued conversation around gunshot detection.
Yes. That's
what I was at that meeting for, but we couldn't continue that conversation because there was no quorum in the room.
Yeah, there's another one on the 9th. So on the 9th of the.
Oh, so it's already been rescheduled, so I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
So,
it's here.
yeah.
Nice
So-
to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming back tonight. If anybody else has questions, please come up and see me. I don't want to hold everybody else up on the call here. And for you on the Zoom, I think there was a question asked about the buildings department. If people don't open their doors, how do we enforce codes? Please call our office if you've got an issue. We'll try to work with the building inspectors to get to the properties that you're concerned about. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Commander Mark, and thank Carl for being here. And I will end the meeting here and stop recording.
Commander,
We
I
will
have a
be publishing
question.
a
We
link
live right next
to the meeting as well as
And, they get
publishing the
overly
presentation that we
noisy.
gave to you. Thank you.
Communication with them, but it's